Hello, my name is Terry Blunt. I drive a truck in the oil fields of North Dakota and Montana, and I'm making this safety film to highlight the potential hazards that a truck driver will probably face when they come here and drive truck to the oil fields and deliver sand and fresh water and other products to the drill sites. So without further delay, I would like to start into the actual clips that I took out in the field. Thank you. This is a sand plant, and the first thing you can see is workers up on top of their trucks. They have to go up there a couple times each time they load up with sand, open the holes to put the sand in, and to close them once the sand is put in there. And as you can see, there's absolutely no fall protection. See if I can back up here a little bit. See this guy? He got down already. And as I learned from the films, if you're working where there's a hole over 3 foot deep, that falls under the category of confined spaces, since you could fall in that hole there. So it surprises me there's no fall protection, because we had it when we delivered oil and gas and had to go up on the trucks to mix additives. We at least had railing there. And on top of that, the #1 fine that OSHA, a category for OSHA fines in the last few years, has been for fall protection violations. So either they don't know about this or they don't care, but it's definitely something that is overlooked. Also, I'd like to add to this, what's ironic about it is, here we are at the sand plant, here's the truck, and if I just pan over here a few feet, you will see that they have equipment to help workers get up on the truck safely, but it's sitting over here in the bushes and they don't even use it. Maybe at one time they thought it was a good idea and built it, but as you can see, it's not being put to use. There's another truck coming in, so maybe we'll see this guy get up there. Okay, here's a guy climbing up there. No kind of fall protection. Hard-working man, got a family somewhere. Open his hatches so they can put in the sand. Of course, that hole, as you can see, is probably 12 foot deep, and he has to work around them and then climb down those little bitty stairs. No fall protection, no concern for open pit or whatever else the regulations warn you about. Okay, enough about this. I don't even drive a sand truck, but I have ridden on them, and I noticed that this was overlooked. Okay, here's another thing where there's no fall protection, but people are walking around at least 12 foot high. What happens is you come and you put water in here, in these tanks, in these little holes here, and there's hatches there. You can see this one's open. Well, it's so far at the other end, you go up the steps, but you can't communicate with the drivers back here. So guys climb all the way up there, and they're walking all down these row of tanks, down the ridges, telling the drivers where there's space, where there's room to put the water. Well, it'd be a pain in the ass to have to put up a rail up there, or fall protection, but it is required, and if somebody fell off of there, it'd be a bad thing. And so when you come in and looking, even though you can look at the other side, you can't tell the driver until you climb up there and come over here and talk to him, because he'd have to, everybody would be walking all around to the other side, and as you saw the other side, it's not very easy to walk around because it's got all that pipes and stuff on it. You see? It's hard to walk down in there and get to those steps, climb over all this kind of stuff. And many times it's corded off and they don't want you up there. So if you went up there and looked in that hatch right there, you'd have to figure out what tank that was to put it in on the other side if it was empty. So there's another place where fall protection is supposed to be, because it's clearly over 6 feet high. I can dunk a basketball, and that basketball goes 10 feet. That's at least 12 feet high. Well, I'm going to put up my camera before it gets wet, but that's another fall protection film. I just made a video about the guys walking on top of the tanks to see about the space to put water, so we can see one. It just is a new site here. He's checking the hose and walking there at the edge. He's got a 12-foot drop under him. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. But I think regulations call for fall protection. Well, there's two of them now. I mean, I don't think a guy would fall off of there. I mean, it is slippery when it's been raining, and you got, rubber boots are pretty slippery on that, especially they go up there and you got mud. I'll admit I've been up there looking at them, because what you gonna do, climb the steps every time and look? If you're hauling in a lot of water and you got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 trucks and 2 sitting out here waiting, you want to find a place that you can go ahead and unload at the same time everybody else. So you go up there and look for the other drivers and try to help them find a spot to put it. There's not really steps going all the way up. You get up to the top of the steps where you can look in. You can see those over there. Then you're really climbing on the handrail of the step to go up there. And I've been on jobs where it was an OSHA guy saw you doing that, you'd go home. Your company would get a $10,000 fine. We've had that before. But there's no OSHA out here. I'm not making this video to report anybody, get anybody in trouble, but if you're out here working, you need to know to be careful that there's the regulations in place to protect you from falling off on your head and breaking your arm or your neck or whatever. Let's see if we can see these guys. It's harder getting down than getting up, actually. And another truck coming in behind. But they're looking for places to dump their water, helping out other drivers. They're just up. Look at that. You got to get down very carefully. Then you can go down the steps, but you have to go down those handrails. You have to step on your hand railing and use it for a step to go up and down. I mean, that might even be a company man up there that's kind of overseeing this job, because some trucks are heating water in some of these, and some are bringing fresh water in, some are bringing the hot water out to the place they're needing it. The company man has been here quite a bit. Yeah, see? It's getting down. Okay. Okay, what you have here is a water pond. This is where you dump the water for about 95% of the loads you haul. To me, this is probably the most dangerous part of the job, because if you fell into there, probability is low that you'd fall in, but if you fell in and you're wet, you'd never climb up that plastic. And even if there was another trucker here, what's he going to throw you? His chain that he uses to pull himself out of the mud? I mean, there's hundreds of these all over the place, and they're about 40 foot deep. And as you can see, this one is got at least 10 to 12 more feet to be full. And even if you were a good swimmer and you fell in there and you had a hard hat, steel-toe boots, layers of clothes, your chances of swimming, and that water's cold. You can wash your hands and they'll be numb. And so in the winter, they're iced over pretty bad. So the shock of going into the cold water, no ladder, no kind of possible way to get out, not even a rope with some knots tied in it, you pretty much would be doomed. Now, a logical question would be, why would you even walk up to the edge here and stand on that plastic? A lot of times you have to go and suck the water out of these ponds. When they finish, there's water left, they may want that water moved a few miles. So you're sucking the water out. And when you pull the water out of a pond, your hose is full. The 4-inch hose full, drop down that far, will weigh 75 to 100 pounds. And when you finish getting as much water on your truck as you want, you have to load. See, he's standing on the plastic there. You you have to load, you have to pull the hose up so that it sucks the water out. Otherwise, when you uncouple the hose from your truck, you get gallons and gallons that spills out and creates a huge mud hole in the back tires of your truck. So when you suck it out, you want to clear out the water of the hose, and that means you got to walk up to the edge, pull the pipe, the hose up so it's out of the water and it can suck air and clear it out. And that's when it's really risky about falling in. So, I mean, a rope with some knots, or a ladder, or just some boards to make a makeshift ladder into these things. And like I say, nearly every rig has a pond like this. 175 rigs in North Dakota. There are some that we put it in tanks, but mostly ponds, and then a lot of times we have to come to ponds and pull out what water's left and move it to where they need it next time. So I would think that this meets the open pit violations, in which even though the most OSHA fines were written for a failure to have fall protection, the largest fines are written for spaces where you're digging and machinery might fall onto you, or pits where if it's over 5 feet deep, you're required to have a ladder every 25 feet. And I have never seen, I know I've seen over 50 of these ponds. I put water into 25 or 30 and never seen any way to get out of a single one of them. And you'd have to be Houdini to get up out of, climb up that wet plastic, that plastic when you're wet in that pond, if you didn't drown first. So that's something that really should be considered for the safety, your safety when you're working out here. Okay, I wanted to add a couple more comments about filling these ponds, which is what you do if you haul water about 90% of the time. You'll see there's some rocks and stuff on these hoses, and lots of times you'll have to use your own hoses. And the reason is sometimes the end of your hose will have the clamps on it, and when you pump the water out, these clamps will, the pipe will flap around, these clamps will tear that lining, and it upsets a lot of people, getting bent out of shape if you tear that lining, and rightfully so, because contractors build them and work hard, and they get torn. They're very hard to fix, and the people that, the oil companies that bought the water to go in there will lose their water, and possibly it'll get these berms quite high in some places holding the water in. It'll get them soaked, and they will start to give out. So you might find yourself out here at night putting rocks or tires or pallets or whatever you can find on the end of the hose to keep it from flopping around, and you have to work right up next to the edge of that. Interesting, today when I was fueling up, I met a man that builds these, and we were talking about escaping, getting out of them, and he says, well, there's supposed to be a rope on all four sides. And he mentioned that his dog fell in, and they had a very difficult time getting his dog out. And, you know, dogs have claws, and his dog couldn't even climb up that plastic using his claws. So it is it's a pit to fall in, as the Bible talks about falling in a pit. So you need to be really careful, especially if you're out here by yourself at night and you're trying to weight down your hose and you're at the edge in there, you don't have 3 hands to hold your light, you need a good light that will go on your head. And be very careful, because you can slip in, especially in the snow and ice, and you have to work right near that edge frequently. Now here is a waste pond. We don't put fresh water in here. It's where nasty production water goes. And you can see they have spent thousands of dollars. I would say, I mean, at least $5,000, because this net, I think it's kind of like your golf course net. It's all put here to keep birds out, and I think it's a dang good idea. It covers that entire pond. Now some of them it's falling down, and birds can still get into it, but I hear they find pretty heavy if a bird gets into it. So I imagine they have someone coming around pulling the dead birds out of it before they get caught. But the thing is, I showed all those ponds that we went up and worked to the edge. Nothing at all to protect a human. Of course, humans aren't putting water in here, so this has nothing to do with hauling fresh water. So it makes for an interesting saying we have here. If you're a duck, you're in luck. If your name's Slim, you better know how to swim, because if you fall in, there's nothing to keep you from falling into freshwater ponds. I'm really glad they do this. Back in the 80s, whenever there was an oil boom in North Dakota, the highest concentrations of hydrogen sulfide that were found were in the north end of Roosevelt Park, which comes up toward Williston. And that was just the highest concentrations out in the wild, you know, not near a pig farm, a dairy farm, or anywhere else, that sewage treatment plant where you might expect concentration. That was really high concentration, just out in the wild was found. And then in the same location, about over 1 mile from about 3 rigs, the concentration of hydrogen sulfide was strong enough to kill birds. Birds are very sensitive. You heard of the canary in the coal mine. Guys are working in the coal mine in the old days, they didn't have equipment, so they took the canary down. And just a little bit of gas. So I think in the coal mines they were more worried about explosive gas than they were poison gas. But anyway, the low concentrations of gas would kill the bird. So you work a little bit and look at the canary. If the canary died, you knew it was time for you to better be getting out of there, because you'd be next. So they lost a lot of endangered species birds up here, and it was quite serious. They say if you fall into that, you'll die. Birds get in it, they die. So it's nothing you want to be hanging around. That's one of these kind of ponds. That's why the truck fell in. See, they have the roads around them, and it's best to stay away from them, because you get up close to that edge and you drag your trailer through it, it'll just roll right over in there. The truck rolled over in one of them. The guy flagging him back and got too close and rolled over. It cost $60,000 to get that truck out and to get it back running again. It's parked in our yard, and you can see the tank is all mangled up where they try to repair it and keep using the truck. So people do fall in them, and you will get sick. Birds will die. Be careful. Video here. Let's go up here and take a quick look in. What happened is I came out to these tanks about 7 o'clock one night. Can you see that brown crud in there? Way down at the bottom. Let me try a different one. And the company man was here, and he told us, me and about 2 other drivers that were looking over, surveying the site to put in water. Some trucks were unloading, and we were on standby. I don't know if you can see that. That's just full of crud. That old brown, blackish sludge material. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's not good for you to breathe it. So he told us to be sure not to overflow these, because that sludge, even though they pumped them out, you can't pump out the last few inches, and you put the water in, it floats on the water. If you overfill these tanks, that sludge is the first thing that goes out. And then obviously when they get ready to move these to another site, and all that sludge, if that sludge runs over all down the side, it'll look like a fudge sundae to the DOT, and they definitely don't want that. If that material gets on the ground out here, it'll be extremely difficult to clean it up. So what happens is, you see the lid is open up here. I brought them in here with the lids closed. So about 4 o'clock in the morning, I came back, and I was the only one here, and I came back and started putting the water in these holes here. Took my hose up, started shooting water in, and I climbed up the ladders and went up to the top and opened the hatch to see how much water I had. And when I opened it, I breathed the fumes, and they irritated my mouth, my throat, my lungs. Just made me feel sick and woozy. And so I kind of said, to hell with it, I ain't gonna look in there. You know, you have to take a flashlight, look down there when it's totally dark out here. And it helped the water without running over. And when I left, I got right out here on the road. I was by myself, right out there on that road. And the safety man was coming back from somewhere, the water boss. And I imagine he had gone out to the road to make a phone call. You can't get phone reception here, so if anybody needs to make a phone call, they have to drive about 4 miles out to the highway. So he was coming in, and I stopped, and I told him, I said, you know, I just opened the tank to check the water level, opened the hatch on the tank, and I breathed those bad fumes. And drivers need to be warned about that, and need to let them know. And to my surprise, he just said, oh, we know about it. And he just drove right off. He didn't ask me, you know, are you sick? Are you feeling okay? Do you need any medical attention or anything? I just told him I had breathed some bad air. And he wasn't concerned about it at all. Oh. Here's some things right here you got to watch out for too when you're climbing up there. So that alerted my concern, and that's why I wanted to check it. May not be. But see these steps like this going up? When you're out here and you're working in that mud, all over your boots, it's kind of dried out right now, but you can see they're still there. And then you start up that ladder, it's easy to slip right here on these rungs. Be careful on these rungs. Several of them here have them. So anyway, I became more serious about it and checked on it more. Let's see. And I was looking that day, it was still daylight, and about 1 out of every 10 tanks have this sign. This tank may contain fatal vapors. Peligro, danger. Okay? The others don't have them. There's none on this one. So if you happen to be at a tank and happen to see it, this one doesn't have it. They're on maybe, I think the 4th one down here does. Right here. So really, I counted them the other day, and one day, and I think it's about 5 tanks or 6 tanks out here have them. See, none on this one, none on that one. So if you have some warnings that they possibly have fatal vapors, okay? So here's the other concern, is what I would say meets the qualifications for confined spaces. See, they finish out this row and then they come back and they put another tank in. Well, right here this is out of line. It's not like it was the night I was here. The night I was here there was about 6 tanks going back past this one. And we had to go back in here in this area. It is about 5 feet and hook up to these places all the way back in there like that. Well, the fumes, the vapors were really bad that night because the hatches were open, and when we shoot the water in there, we use about 15 pounds of air pressure, and it's going through a 3 or 4 inch hose. So when all the water empties our tank, it just blows air. And hydrogen sulfide is soluble in water until it's agitated. Then it comes out. Then hydrogen sulfide gas is heavier than air, so when it rolls out up here out of the hatches, it settles down in between these tanks. So the breathing was horrible going in there to hook up our hoses. Now, it would be a very simple thing just not to put a tank here right beside it, to leave a space. There's plenty of room here to put more tanks. But they had them close together, and it was 3 trucks here. And I asked one of the guys where he was putting his water, and he said he didn't care as long as he could get away from this stinking mess. So I wasn't the only one affected by it. Now, that time, when we were putting them back in there was a company guy present sitting in the pickup right out here by this water. So they did have a guy present, but he didn't wear a mask. In fact, he had non-compliant facial hair. He couldn't have wore a mask if he had had one. And really I think you have to have a self-contained air supply to protect you. Maybe a charcoal filter will. I'm just not that clear on all those. So there's several things going on here that can get you hurt, get you sick, get you killed. If there's hydrogen sulfide in here, it's been known to kill a lot of people. If the concentration gets over 750 or 800 parts per million, you'll die. It causes it's a carcinogen. It causes asphyxiation because it also blocks the cell's ability to exchange oxygen. And even if you don't immediately die, prolonged exposure definitely will cause cancer and even lower your IQ. I have a whole list of things I can read off the signs. But the first signs of bad air is the burning in your mouth, your lungs. You can smell it. It smells. The hydrogen sulfide has a rotten egg smell, a sulfur smell. You can detect until it gets over about 150 to 200 parts per million, and then it kills or numbs your olfactory senses, so your nose no longer detects it. So it's not considered. It's considered, hydrogen sulfide is considered an odorless gas. Now it's not regulated by the EPA. Anyway, when you working around these places, oil rigs are one of the most dangerous places to work because of all the complex and heavy equipment, things like that that's going on. And it's like a circus. I mean, you got tons of trucks bringing in tanks, bringing in water, bringing in sand, erecting the drill rigs, setting up all kinds of equipment, machinery. And there was a death about 3 weeks to a month ago of a guy who got electrocuted because lines running everywhere and all this water. So show extreme caution. Here's a wellhead set down here in the middle of something, and they're always right in the middle, seems like, and a lot of times they don't even have this much stuff on it, and they get run over and struck by trucks coming in and trying to get turned around and everything. Sometimes they make these like a bowl, so no wastewater or bad stuff will get out and get into the environment and pollute the wildlife and the crops and things like that. But when you make it like a bowl, I mean, a lot of these have a plastic lining under the whole site. When you make it like that, the water can't escape, so it becomes just a giant mud hole. And it's a lot going on, a lot of different people. A lot of people don't want to take responsibility for overlapping problems or things, you know. Open this in a little bit and stick one in there. You can see right here, somebody came in and that fell off, so you think they put it back on or did anything about it? No. There's a tank somewhere without steps on it. What I was saying is, what's strange about these sites is when they come in, let me see, there's some equipment up there at the top or somewhere here. They have hoses that connect each of these things. It'll go from here, over to here, over to there, and they'll just pull the water out of one tank. And all of them will go down because they're all connected here at the lowest level. So, in theory, we could just fill one tank out there and not be around any of them. We could safely fill that tank if they're all connected like they will be later. And the water level over in number 33 way over there will be the same as the water level in the first one over here or even over there. You just probably want to put it in the highest ones and close it off as if the lower one's filled up first. And there's some newer ones that have some gauges on them, but you know, it'd be so simple to take there's the hatch right here. You've seen the hole up there. Just to take a basketball goal and stuff a beach ball down in the net and lay that basketball there. And when the water rose up, the beach ball is lodged in the netting of the basketball net because it's larger than basketball, and the beach ball would pop up when the water pushed it up. You could see it from way out there on the road if it was full of water. Just something simple like that would resolve all these potential hazards here. Okay, here we are at the top of the hill, and I was telling you about the hoses they link up. Here's part of the equipment they use, and they link these hoses to these tanks so that all they have to do is pull the water out of one and it takes it out of all of them. So if they were hooked up before the water companies came in here, you got this equipment and other equipment here that get it from the tanks to the well where they need it. It'd be a lot easier, safer, going down there and tangling up with all that traffic that's in that site and dealing in that mud and with those fumes and that nasty stuff that's in those tanks. That would be my recommendation fix. And everything I try to film, I try to offer a better solution or some ideas from my experience and safety films I've seen to make it safer and easier and less congested. You see this sock here? Every one of these rigs have this wind sock. That's because if you get natural gas out of the wellhead, you can't smell natural gas until they add that stink to it, or hydrogen sulfide is released in the air. You know which way to run. You want to run where the wind is away from the cone, where the wind is coming from. You want to get upwind. Because if I was standing right over here by that thing and something happened down at that well site, the wind would blow all those pollutions right into my face and into my lungs. Okay.